November 18th, 1942. 3 hours before dawn. The lamp on Major Karl Vogel's desk casts a yellow circle over reconnaissance photographs that will not lie. He has been staring at them for 6 weeks now. The same images, the same conclusions, the same warnings that disappear into files marked classified and never mentioned again. Outside the window of 6th Army headquarters, the steppe holds its breath. Frost creeps across the glass in patterns that look like maps. Somewhere in the distance, a sentry stamps his feet against the cold. The sound is small and lonely in the vast Russian silence. Vogel is 34 years old. Before the war, he taught mathematics at Leipzig. He understands patterns, he understands probability, and he understands that the photographs spread before him represent a mathematical certainty that no one wants to believe. The first photo shows the Serafimovich bridgehead, October 12th. 5 Soviet pontoon bridges across the Don. Behind them, vehicle tracks in the mud, hundreds of them. Tank tracks, supply columns, artillery positions. The second photo, October 19th. Same location. The bridges are now permanent. Engineer units have reinforced them. The vehicle tracks have multiplied. Dark rectangles appear in the fields beyond. Fuel dumps, ammunition storage, field hospitals. The third photo, October 28th. The rectangles have spread like a disease. New roads cut through the steppe, radio antenna forests, command bunkers, and in neat rows behind the river, the unmistakable shapes of armor, T-34 tanks. Hundreds of them. Vogel has counted them. He has measured the spacing. He has calculated the supply requirements. The mathematics are simple and brutal. This is not a defensive buildup. This is preparation for offensive operations on a scale that will dwarf anything the Soviets have attempted since summer. He has written 7 reports, each one detailed, each one supported by photographic evidence and signals intelligence, each one filed away with the same notation from high command. Quote, Soviet deception effort. Recommend continued observation. No action required. End quote. Vogel lights another cigarette, his 8th tonight. The smoke drifts through the lamplight and disperses in the cold air. He opens his logbook and makes another entry. November 18th, 37 hours. Serafimovich sector. Estimated enemy strength. 3 Soviet armies. Mechanized forces. Guard units. Objective. He pauses, then writes the word that will define everything. Encirclement. The door opens. General Ernst Reinhardt enters without knocking. He is 52 years old. Career soldier. Prussian Academy. He wears his uniform like a second skin. Boots polished despite the mud outside. Collar straight despite 3 months of street fighting in Stalingrad. His face is weathered, but his eyes are sharp and tired. You sent for me, Major. Vogel stands, salutes, gestures to the photographs. Sir, I have updated analysis from signals intelligence. The pattern is now conclusive. Reinhardt moves to the desk. He has seen these photos before, but Vogel has arranged them differently tonight. Not by date, by location. Northern flank, southern flank. A mirror image. Explain. Vogel spreads a map beside the photographs. His finger traces the blue line representing the 6th Army's position, a hook curving around Stalingrad. Then he marks the flanks. Romanian 3rd Army to the north. Romanian 4th Army to the south. Sir, the Soviet buildup is not random. It follows a deliberate pattern. I have compared it to our own operational plans from 1941. He produces another map. This one from the previous year. The encirclement of Kiev. German panzer groups striking from north and south, closing the ring behind the Soviet southwestern front. 600,000 men trapped. The greatest encirclement in military history. This is Kiev, September 1941. Our northern pincer here, southern pincer here, meeting point here. His finger taps the convergence. The Soviets are replicating our methodology exactly. Northern concentration at Serafimovich. Southern concentration at Beketovka. Both oriented toward the same objective, The Don crossings behind our army. Reinhardt studies the maps. His jaw tightens. He sees it too. The geometric clarity. The operational elegance. The Soviets have been good students. Estimated timeline. Sir, based on supply accumulation rates and weather patterns, they can launch within 72 hours, possibly sooner. Their logistics are in place. Fresh infantry divisions have rotated into forward positions. Tank armies are at assembly areas. All indicators suggest imminent offensive. Reinhardt moves to the larger situation map on the wall. The 6th Army's positions glow under the lamp. 250,000 men, 20 divisions, committed to the ruins of Stalingrad, locked in block by block fighting for a city that has become a symbol neither side can abandon, and on both flanks, holding sectors that stretch for hundreds of kilometers. The Allied armies, Romanian, Italian, Hungarian, brave men, loyal men, but under-equipped, under-strength, holding defensive lines that exist more on paper than in reality. Your recommendation, Major. Vogel has prepared for this question. He has run the calculations 100 times. The answer never changes. Sir, we must withdraw from Stalingrad immediately, shorten our lines, create mobile reserves from the divisions currently committed to the city. If the Soviets achieve breakthrough on both flanks, we will be encircled. Our supply lines will be cut. The army will be trapped. The room falls silent, except for the frost creaking on the windows. Reinhardt stands very still. A career of obedience wars with a lifetime of tactical training. Vogel can see the conflict in his commander's face. I will contact Army Group. Prepare a formal briefing for the staff at 0800. Include all supporting documentation. Sir. Reinhardt turns to leave, stops at the door, does not look back. When did you first identify this pattern? Major. October 12th. Sir. 6 weeks ago. The silence that follows is answer enough. Reinhardt leaves. Vogel returns to his photographs. Outside, the first gray light touches the eastern sky. November 18th is becoming November 19th. Vogel returns to his analysis. He pulls out detailed topographic maps of the Romanian defensive sectors. The positions look adequate on paper. Trenches, strong points, anti-tank ditches. But he has visited these positions. He knows the reality. The Romanian Third Army holds a front of 140 kilometers with 7 divisions, 20 kilometers per division, far beyond doctrinal recommendations. Their trenches are shallow. Many positions have no overhead cover. Anti-tank guns are obsolete models. Romanian 47mm pieces, effective only at close range against older Soviet tanks. Against T-34s with sloped armor, they are nearly useless. Ammunition stocks are limited. Many units report less than 100 rounds per gun. Winter clothing is inadequate. Medical supplies scarce. He makes notes in precise script. Romanian Third Army. Defensive density insufficient. Anti-tank capability marginal. Logistics inadequate. Morale declining. Assessment. Will not withstand sustained assault by mechanized forces. He moves to the southern sector. Romanian Fourth Army. Similar problems, but slightly better equipped. Still grossly inadequate for the frontage assigned. He calculates breakthrough probability. Against determined Soviet assault with armor support and adequate artillery preparation, Romanian positions will collapse within 24 to 48 hours. The mathematics are pitiless. Somewhere across the steppe, in positions the reconnaissance planes cannot see, Soviet artillerymen are loading shells. Tank crews are running final checks. Infantry companies are forming up in the darkness. November 19th, 1942. 4:30 hours. The headquarters is alive now. Staff officers move through corridors carrying message folders and steaming cups of ersatz coffee. Radio operators bend over their sets, transcribing reports from the front. In the main briefing room, a long table has been cleared. Maps cover its surface. Vogel stands at one end with his photographs and charts. General Reinhardt sits at the head. Beside him, Chief of Staff Konrad Steiner, 48 years old, angular face, eyes that miss nothing. He has the look of a man who considers pessimism a character flaw. The other division commanders are present. Among them, General Wilhelm Creutzfeldt, 55 years old, combat soldier since 1914. He has the scars to prove it. A face like carved wood, hands that never quite stop moving. He fought at Verdun. He knows what happens when armies get trapped in killing grounds they cannot leave. Vogel begins his briefing. He speaks clearly and without emotion. The facts are damning enough without embellishment. Soviet force concentrations, artillery preparation positions, tank assembly areas, supply stockpiles sufficient for sustained offensive operations, radio intercepts indicating coordination between multiple fronts. Steiner interrupts. Major, the Soviets have conducted deception operations throughout this campaign. How do we know this buildup is not another maskirovka, another attempt to fix our attention while they strike elsewhere? Vogel has anticipated this question. He produces signals, intercepts, not just traffic volume but content, code names matching those used in previous Soviet offensives, movement orders referencing specific objectives. The bridge at Kalach, the Don crossings, the rail lines behind 6th Army. Sir, the intercepts are consistent with genuine operational traffic. Moreover, the supply buildup cannot be faked. We have photographic evidence of fuel dumps, ammunition storage, and bridging equipment. These are not decoys. These are the logistics of a major offensive. Creutzfeldt leans forward. Show us Kiev again. Vogel places the two maps side by side. September 1941. November 1942. The geometry is identical. Northern and southern pincers. Weak points targeted. Meeting objective in the enemy rear. They learned from us. We showed them how to close the ring. Now they will use the same method. Steiner's expression hardens. Speculation. We cannot base operational decisions on pattern recognition and pessimistic assumptions. Creutzfeldt's voice remains calm, but his eyes are cold. This is not pessimism. Conrad, this is tactical analysis. The Soviets have 300,000 men concentrated on our flanks. They have armor, they have artillery, and they have time to prepare while we are committed to fighting in the ruins. If they break through, we are cut off. It is mathematics, not morale. Reinhardt raises a hand. The room quiets. Recommendations. Creutzfeldt speaks first. We withdraw from Stalingrad. Tonight, pull our divisions out of the city. Form a mobile reserve. Shorten our defensive perimeter. If the Soviets attack, we will have forces to counterattack. If they do not, we have improved our position. Steiner counters immediately. Impossible. The Führer has ordered that Stalingrad be held. The political consequences of withdrawal would be catastrophic. We have fought for 3 months to take this city. We cannot simply abandon it based on intelligent speculation. The political consequences of encirclement would be worse. We will not be encircled. The Romanian armies are in position. We have German liaison officers coordinating their defense. If the Soviets attack, we will reinforce the threatened sectors. With what reserves? We have committed everything to the city. The argument continues. Vogel watches Reinhardt. The general's face reveals nothing, but his hands, resting on the table, are absolutely still. The stillness of a man who has already made a decision and is waiting for the right moment to announce it. At 06:15, Reinhardt stands. I will contact Army Group B. I will request authorization to prepare contingency plans for withdrawal. We will not abandon our positions without orders, but we will be ready to move if those orders come. Major Vogel, you will continue monitoring enemy activity. Report any changes immediately. Dismissed. The officers file out. Vogel remains. He is gathering his materials when Creutzfeldt approaches. Your analysis is correct. Major, you know that? Yes, sir. And you know they will not authorize withdrawal. Vogel meets his eyes. Yes, sir. I know. Creutzfeldt nods once, then leaves. Vogel is alone with the maps. The pattern mocks him with its clarity. He thinks of all the warnings he has written, all the evidence he has compiled, all the mathematics that point to the same conclusion. It does not matter what he knows. It only matters what they are willing to believe. 6:45 hours. The sky lightens to the east, a pale steel blue that promises nothing but cold. Vogel steps outside the headquarters building. The air cuts at his lungs. His breath fogs white. Around him, the morning routines of an army continue. Sentries change shifts. Vehicles are started, their engines coughing in the frozen air. Somewhere a field kitchen sends smoke into the dawn. Vogel walks to the edge of the compound where the communications trucks are parked. Radio masts rise like skeletal fingers into the gray light. Inside one of the trucks, a signal sergeant hunches over his equipment, headphones pressed tight, pencil moving across a notepad. Vogel climbs in. The sergeant looks up, salutes awkwardly in the cramped space. Anything new? Sir. Heavy traffic from Soviet command nets since Euro 400. Encoded. But the volume is triple normal levels. Pattern. Sir. It matches the signature from Soviet offensive preparations we recorded at Kharkov. Initial coordination. Unit acknowledgements. Final timing confirmations. Vogel takes the notepad, scans the frequencies and traffic density, then checks his watch. 6:48. He feels the weight of inevitability settling over him like the cold. Keep monitoring. Record everything. If traffic volume changes, find me immediately. Sir. Vogel returns to headquarters. The briefing room is empty now. The maps remain. He stands before the wall chart showing the entire Eastern Front. The Sixth Army is a bulge extending deep into Soviet territory. A salient, vulnerable, and on both flanks, those thin blue pencil lines representing Allied units. He hears footsteps behind him. Captain Erich Lindemann, chief quartermaster, 43 years old. A banker before the war. Now he manages the mathematics of keeping 250,000 men fed, armed, and mobile. Major, I heard your briefing was enlightening. Vogel glances at him. The staff was enlightened. Whether they were convinced is another matter. Lindemann moves to the map, studies the supply routes, the rail lines, the single bridge at Kalach that connects Sixth Army to the rest of the Wehrmacht. I ran calculations. If our supply line is cut, current stockpiles give us 12 days of ammunition at combat consumption rates, 8 days of fuel, food for perhaps 16 days on reduced rations. And then we eat the horses, and then we surrender or starve, unless we are resupplied by air. Can the Luftwaffe sustain us? Lindemann's laugh is bitter and brief. The Luftwaffe cannot sustain a division by air, let alone an army. I have studied the logistics of aerial supply. The tonnage requirements alone are impossible. But more importantly, we would need fuel to hold a defensive perimeter, ammunition to repel attacks, medical supplies for casualties, food for men working in sub-zero temperatures. The mathematics do not work. Major, they simply do not work. Vogel lights a cigarette, offers one to Lindemann. They smoke in silence, watching the map as if it might reveal some solution they have not yet calculated. When do you think they will attack? Lindemann asks. Vogel checks his watch again. ZO 7:02. Soon, 7:20 hours. The northern horizon turns white. It happens without warning. One moment the steppe is dark and silent. The next, the sky splits. A ripple of red flares claws upward from Soviet positions. Then another. Then a dozen. The quiet shatters into rolling thunder that punches through walls and bones and the illusion of safety. Thousands of Soviet guns open fire at once. The Romanian positions along the Don erupt in fountains of earth and snow. The first shells fall short, feeling for the range. Then they creep forward in stepped rhythm, finding the trenches, the command posts, the artillery batteries, the roads, in the headquarters building. Windows rattle in their frames. The coffee in Vogel's cup trembles, sending ripples across the dark surface. Steiner opens the door and sound crashes in. Deep, continuous, like a storm that has no end. Artillery preparation. Romanian sector. Very heavy. Reinhardt is already moving to the door. He steps outside and the roar intensifies. The northern sky flickers orange and white, distant lightning that never stops. He listens, reading the pattern, the artillery language he has known since the last war. This is not harassment fire. This is not a probing attack. This is the overture to annihilation. Vogel appears beside him. Creutzfeldt arrives from his division headquarters. The three men stand watching the horizon burn. No one speaks. There is nothing to say that the guns are not already saying louder. Inside, the telephones begin ringing. Reports flood in from liaison officers with the Romanian armies. The barrage is hitting the entire front, dozens of kilometers. Communication trenches are collapsing. Forward positions are being obliterated. Wire lines cut. Observation posts blind. Reinhardt returns to the map room. His staff gathers around the table. The situation develops with terrible speed. Red marks appear on the map, showing areas under bombardment. The marks spread, merge, become a solid band of fire consuming the northern flank. At 08:05, the barrage lifts. The sudden silence is worse than the noise. In that ringing quiet, Romanian soldiers crawl from collapsed bunkers. They spit dirt and blood. Their ears cannot hear their own voices. The trenches are filled with shattered equipment and men who will never move again. Then the Soviets come. Through the smoke and ground fog, dark figures appear, Soviet infantry in quilted jackets, helmets low, rifles ready. They move in waves. Behind them, the shapes that make every throat tighten with fear. T-34 tanks, KV heavy tanks. Their engines roar as they climb over shell craters and torn wire. The Romanian machine guns open fire. Rifles crack. Anti-tank guns engage at desperate ranges. Some Soviet tanks burn. Some infantry companies break. But there are always more behind. Always more tanks. Always more men. At 08:30, a Romanian division commander makes radio contact with German liaison. His voice is thin with static and terror. Enemy tanks have penetrated his rear positions. His anti-tank guns are destroyed or frozen. His infantry is breaking. Steiner grabs the radio. Hold your positions. German reserves are being mobilized. You will receive support. But everyone in the room knows the truth. There are no meaningful reserves. The German units that might stabilize the situation are locked in Stalingrad, fighting for apartment blocks and factory ruins. They cannot be extracted in time. By 0900, gaps appear on the map. Romanian regiments that held positions yesterday no longer answer calls. Their colored pins are removed. White spaces spread across the northern sector. Creutzfeldt studies the map with the cold assessment of experience. They are through. The Romanian front is collapsing. Soviet armor will be in our rear by nightfall. Steiner's jaw tightens. We can contain it. We will establish blocking positions. Redirect units from secondary sectors. We cannot contain 3 Soviet armies with blocking positions. We need to withdraw now. While we still have a corridor west, I will not recommend unauthorized withdrawal. Creutzfeldt turns to Reinhardt. Sir, you must request immediate authorization from Army Group. Every hour we delay, the situation worsens. If the Soviets break through in the south as well, we will be surrounded. Reinhardt has been silent through the exchange. He stands at the map. His finger traces the supply route from Kalach to the rear areas. One road, one rail line, one bridge. The entire army depends on that single artery. Major Vogel, your assessment. Vogel steps forward. He has been updating calculations on a notepad. Speed of Soviet advance. Distance to key objectives. Time remaining. Sir, if Soviet armor maintains current rate of advance, they will reach the Don crossings within 36 hours. If the southern attack begins as I expect, their pincers will meet within 48 to 72 hours. We have perhaps one day to withdraw before encirclement becomes probable. One day, Reinhardt repeats. He looks at the map. At the city, they have fought 3 months to capture. At the divisions committed to streets and ruins. At the single bridge that connects them to survival. Then he reaches for the telephone, asks to be connected to Army Group B. The connection takes several minutes. Crackling. Distant voices. Finally, the operations officer at Army Group comes on the line. Reinhardt's request is formal and precise. Request authorization to prepare withdrawal from Stalingrad. Shorten defensive perimeter. Create mobile reserve to contain enemy breakthrough. Estimated timeline for preparation. 12 hours. The answer comes back within 30 minutes. Reinhardt listens without expression, then hangs up the telephone. Turns to face his staff. Army Group states that current attacks are assessed as local actions. 6th Army will maintain current positions. No withdrawal is authorized. We are to commit available reserves to stabilize the Romanian sectors. Creutzfeld's face hardens. That is insane. That is our order. And when the Soviets encircle us, what are our orders then? Reinhardt does not answer. He returns to the map. The northern sector is a spreading red stain now. Reports continue to arrive. Soviet tanks 30 kilometers behind the original front line. Romanian units in full retreat. German liaison officers trying desperately to organize rearguard actions with troops who have already broken. At 11:45, Vogel receives confirmation from signals intelligence. Heavy Soviet radio traffic detected in the southern sector. Same pattern as the north. Same coded preparations. He brings the report to Reinhardt. Their eyes meet. Both men understand what is coming. The second hammer is about to fall. By midday, the pattern is undeniable. This is Operation Uranus, the double envelopment Vogel predicted, the Kiev playbook implemented against its creators, the mathematics of encirclement applied with Soviet scale and ruthlessness. Creutzfeld makes one more attempt. Sir, we must act while we still can. Order the divisions in Stalingrad to begin phased withdrawal, even without authorization, even if it means court-martial. The lives of 250,000 men are at stake. Reinhardt's voice is quiet but final. I will not disobey orders. General, we are soldiers. We have our duty. Our duty is to our men. Our duty is to obey lawful orders from our superiors. The argument dies. Creutzfeld stands very still, then salutes with mechanical precision and leaves. Vogel watches him go, then turns to Reinhardt. Sir, may I speak freely? Go ahead, Major. Sir, if we do not withdraw now, we will not get another chance. The window is closing. Perhaps it has already closed. Reinhardt's face is gray with exhaustion. He looks every one of his 52 years and more. I know, Major, I know what is happening. I have known since you first showed me those photographs 6 weeks ago. But knowing and acting are not the same thing. I have requested authorization. It has been denied. I cannot do more. Vogel wants to argue, wants to demand, wants to scream that mathematics do not care about authorization. But he sees something in Reinhardt's eyes that stops him. Not fear, not confusion, but a deeper resignation. The look of a man who has already calculated his own fate and found it unacceptable but unavoidable. Sir, Vogel returns to his desk, to his photographs and maps and reports that no one wanted to believe. He thinks about patterns and probability, about warnings ignored and time running out, about the difference between being right and being able to act on that knowledge. At 14:20, the telephones ring again. The southern horizon is burning now. Soviet artillery has opened fire on the Romanian 4th Army. The second pincer is in motion. Steiner updates the map. Red arrows from the north, red arrows from the south, both oriented toward the same objective, the Don crossings, the bridge at Kalach, the supply routes that keep 6th Army alive. Reinhardt makes one more telephone call to Army Group. His voice is calm but insistent. The situation has escalated. Both flanks are under attack. Request urgent authorization to withdraw before encirclement. The answer is the same. Stand fast. Hold current positions. The Allied armies will stabilize. German reserves are being mobilized, but Lindemann's calculations show there are no reserves. Not enough. Not in time. Night falls over the steppe. The northern and southern horizons glow with burning vehicles and buildings. Soviet tanks push deeper into the gap. Romanian divisions scatter or surrender. German liaison officers send increasingly desperate reports. Then their radios go silent. At 2200 hours, Vogel plots the latest intelligence. The Soviet Northern Spearhead has advanced 80 kilometers in 16 hours. The southern advance is slightly slower but equally relentless. He draws 2 red arrows on the map, extends them based on current speed. They meet at a point 50 kilometers west of Stalingrad. Time to convergence: 36 hours, maybe less. He shows the map to Reinhardt. The general studies it for a long moment, then reaches into his desk and pulls out a folder. It is marked Top Secret, dated October 15th, 1942. He slides it across to Vogel. Read it. Vogel opens the folder. It is a directive from OKH, from Hitler himself. The language is clear and absolute. 6th Army will take Stalingrad. The city will be held regardless of cost. Symbolic victory is essential for political reasons. Under no circumstances will withdrawal be authorized without explicit permission from the Führer. The directive is dated 5 weeks before the Soviet offensive began. Vogel looks up at Reinhardt. Understanding dawns cold and complete. Sir, you have been requesting authorization to withdraw since October. I have made 3 formal requests. Each was denied on political grounds. The Führer has decided that Stalingrad must be held. That decision was made before the Soviets even began their buildup. We were committed to this position before the trap was set. Then we have been constrained from the beginning. Yes, Major, we have been constrained by politics, by symbolism, by a decision made far from this front, by men who measure success in propaganda rather than in the survival of armies. Vogel stares at the directive, at the signature, at the date that proves they were doomed before they knew they were in danger. What do we do now? Sir, Reinhardt takes the folder back, files it away. We do our duty. Major, we hold our positions. We fight as long as we can. And we hope that history will record that we tried to warn them. Outside, the steppe is dark and cold. Soviet tanks are rolling through the night. Their objective is clear. Their path is open. And mathematics, which does not care about politics or symbols or duty, counts down the hours until the ring closes. Vogel returns to his desk, makes another entry in his logbook. November 19th, 22:45 hours. Pattern confirmed. Encirclement imminent. Window for withdrawal closing. Authorization denied. He pauses, then writes one final line. We knew. They would not listen. Now it is too late. November 20th, 1942. 400 hours. Reinhardt has not slept. The map table is littered with message forms and updated situation reports. Red markings spread across the northern sector like a bloodstain soaking through paper. Each red mark represents a Romanian unit that no longer exists. Each gap represents a hole through which Soviet armor pours toward the German rear. Vogel enters carrying fresh intelligence summaries. His uniform is rumpled. His eyes are shadowed. He has been in the signals room all night monitoring Soviet radio traffic. Sir, activity in the southern sector is increasing. Same communication patterns we observed before the northern attack. Artillery registration, unit coordination, final movement orders. Reinhardt nods slowly. He has been expecting this. The geometry demands it. A single breakthrough can be contained. A double envelopment cannot. Estimated time: within 4 hours. Sir, possibly less. Kreutzfeld arrives as dawn breaks gray and cold over the steppe. His greatcoat is dusted with frost. His boots leave wet prints on the floor. He has been forward with his division, trying to organize blocking positions with units that are already dissolving under Soviet pressure. He moves straight to the map, studies the northern sector. His finger traces the penetration, 80 kilometers deep. Soviet mechanized units are already approaching the Chir River. Behind the river lies open steppe, and beyond that, the Don crossings at Kalach. How long until they reach the bridge? At current rate of advance, 30 to 36 hours. But they will slow as they outrun their logistics. 48 hours is more realistic. And if the South attacks this morning, Then both pincers will converge within 72 hours. Creutzfeldt turns to Reinhardt. Sir, we have perhaps 24 hours to make the decision. After that, even if authorization comes, we will lack the time to execute withdrawal in good order. Steiner enters. He has been coordinating with Army Group through the night. His face is rigid with fatigue and something else. The stubborn refusal to accept what the map is showing. Army Group is mobilizing reserves. The 48th Panzer Corps is being reoriented to counterattack the northern penetration. The Romanian Third Army is being reinforced with German artillery. The situation is serious but containable. Creutzfeldt's laugh is harsh and brief. The 48th Panzer Corps is 200 kilometers away. It will take 3 days to redeploy. By then, the Soviets will be on the Don. As for the Romanian Third Army, it no longer exists as a cohesive formation. That is defeatist speculation. That is tactical reality. I have liaison officers with those units. They are reporting complete collapse. Men are abandoning positions. Equipment is being left behind. The front has dissolved. The argument is interrupted by the sound every man in the room has been dreading. A low rumble from the south. Growing. Building. The windows begin to rattle. Vogel checks his watch. 7:59 hours. Southern attack commencing. They move to the south-facing windows. The horizon is hidden behind smoke and dust. Artillery flashes strobe through the haze. The barrage is heavier than the northern preparation, more concentrated. The Soviets have learned from yesterday. They are not feeling for weaknesses. They are smashing through. Within minutes, reports flood in. The Romanian Fourth Army sector is under massive bombardment. The German units anchoring the southern flank report the heaviest artillery preparation they have witnessed. Forward observation posts are being obliterated. Communication lines severed. Entire battalion positions disappearing under concentrated fire. Reinhardt returns to the map table. Steiner begins marking the southern attack. Another band of red across the bottom of the map. Vogel stands beside them with his notepad. Sir, I am now tracking 5 Soviet armies in contact. 3 in the north, 2 in the south. Estimated total strength exceeds 400,000 men. Steiner's voice is sharp. Impossible. Our intelligence has never indicated Soviet capability for operations of that scale. Our intelligence indicated exactly this. Sir, 6 weeks ago, the reports were assessed as alarmist. The rebuke hangs in the air. Steiner's face darkens, but he says nothing. The map speaks louder than argument. The red arrows from north and south are undeniable now. This is not a raid, not a limited offensive. This is a deliberate operational maneuver executed with industrial precision. At 0845, Captain Lindemann arrives. He carries a leather document case filled with supply reports and consumption calculations. He spreads spreadsheets across one end of the map table. Columns of figures, tonnage requirements, stockpile inventories, transportation capacity. Gentlemen, I have completed the analysis you requested. General Reinhardt, the logistics situation is as follows. He reads from his notes with the flat precision of a bank examiner delivering an audit. Current ammunition stockpiles, 12 days at combat consumption rates. Fuel reserves, 8 days for mobile operations. Food supplies, 16 days on normal rations. 24 days on reduced rations. These figures assume no interdiction of supply lines and no increase in consumption due to defensive operations. Creutzfeldt leans over the spreadsheets. And if our supply line is cut, if the Soviets take the Kalach bridge, Lindemann's expression does not change. He simply turns to another page. If resupply ceases, ammunition stockpiles drop below minimum combat requirements within 10 days. Fuel is exhausted within 6 days. Food becomes critical within 14 days, assuming immediate rationing and slaughter of all horses. Medical supplies, which are already limited, will be depleted within 1 week. You are describing the death of an army. I am describing the mathematics of logistics. Sir, without resupply, this army cannot sustain combat operations beyond 2 weeks, cannot sustain existence beyond 3 to 4 weeks. Steiner interrupts. The Luftwaffe has committed to aerial resupply if necessary. The Reichsmarshal himself has guaranteed tonnage. Lindemann turns to face him directly. Sir, with respect, I have calculated aerial resupply requirements. At minimum, this army requires 600 tons of supplies per day to maintain combat capability. Food, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies, 600 tons daily. That requires approximately 300 Ju-52 transport aircraft, making successful delivery sorties. Every day, in winter weather, through Soviet air defenses, the Luftwaffe has the capacity. Sir, the Luftwaffe has never sustained aerial resupply to a force of this size under combat conditions. The largest successful airlift in history was the Demyansk pocket. 90,000 men, 100,000 tons delivered over 5 months. We are discussing a force 3 times that size requiring similar tonnage every 2 weeks. Steiner's jaw tightens, but he does not respond. The numbers are merciless. Lindemann continues. Moreover, aerial resupply requires functional airfields within the pocket. Those airfields must be defended. They must be maintained. They require fuel for aircraft operations and ground support. They require anti-aircraft defenses. Each airfield becomes a drain on the very supplies they are meant to deliver. Reinhardt has been listening in silence. Now he speaks. Captain Lindemann, your worst-case assessment. If we are encircled and aerial resupply fails to meet requirements, how long can this army survive? Lindemann meets his commander's eyes. Sir, under winter conditions, with rationing and all available expedients, 6 to 8 weeks before the army ceases to function as a military formation, perhaps 10 weeks before mass casualties from starvation and exposure. The room falls silent. Outside, the southern barrage continues its methodical destruction. The numbers Lindemann has presented are not abstractions. They are the life expectancy of every man in 6th Army measured in tons of flour and liters of fuel. Kreutzfeld breaks the silence. Then we must break out now, before the ring closes, before we are dependent on an airlift that cannot sustain us. Steiner shakes his head. We have no authorization for withdrawal. Army Group has been explicit. We hold our positions. Then request authorization again. Show them these calculations. Show them what will happen if we remain. I have presented this situation to Army Group multiple times. The decision is political, not tactical. Kreutzfeld's voice rises slightly. The first crack in his professional composure. Political. We are discussing the survival of 250,000 men. Politics cannot trump arithmetic. Politics always trumps arithmetic. We are soldiers. We follow orders. The Führer has decided Stalingrad must be held. That is the end of discussion. Kreutzfeld turns to Reinhardt. Sir, you must make them understand. Every hour we delay makes breakout more difficult. The Soviets are closing the corridor. Soon it will be impossible. Reinhardt's voice is tired. Old, I will send another request. I will include Captain Lindemann's analysis. I will make the clearest possible case for immediate withdrawal. But I cannot promise the answer will change. He reaches for the telephone. The call to Army Group takes 15 minutes to connect. Reinhardt speaks carefully, professionally. He outlines the deteriorating situation, the southern attack, the logistics analysis, the timeline for encirclement, the consequences of remaining in position. The response comes from the operations chief. Reinhardt listens. His face reveals nothing. Finally, he says thank you and hangs up. Army Group acknowledges the situation is serious. They are working on solutions. We are to continue holding current positions. No withdrawal is authorized at this time. Kreutzfeld stares at him. Solutions. What solutions? The Soviets are not going to pause their offensive while Army Group works on solutions. That is the order. Then the order is a death sentence. Reinhardt does not argue. He returns to the map. The morning is advancing. Soviet attacks in both sectors are gaining momentum. The Romanian armies are disintegrating. German units are being forced back or surrounded. And with each passing hour, the gap narrows between the two Soviet pincers. Vogel updates his calculations. Soviet northern spearhead has advanced another 20 kilometers overnight. Southern advance is slower due to stronger resistance, but still progressing. He draws new arrows on the map, extends them to their logical conclusion. The meeting point is now clearly defined, west of Kalach, near the village of Sovietsky, a small place, insignificant, except that it represents the lock on the cage door. At 11:30 hours, a new message arrives from Army Group. It is marked urgent. Steiner reads it aloud. Luftwaffe Transport Command has confirmed availability for aerial resupply operations. Reichsmarschall Göring personally guarantees delivery of 500 tons per day to 6th Army if encirclement occurs. Adequate airfields exist within defensive perimeter. Weather forecasts are acceptable. 6th Army is directed to prepare for fortress defense, pending relief operations. The words echo in the sudden quiet. 500 tons per day. Fortress defense. Relief operations. Each phrase carefully chosen to sound reassuring, to sound like a plan. Lindemann's response is immediate. Sir, that is still insufficient. We require 600 tons minimum. 500 tons creates a slow bleed. We will consume stockpiles, weaken defenses, eventually collapse. Steiner's voice is hard. The Reichsmarschall has made a commitment. Are you questioning his assessment? Captain, I am questioning the mathematics. Sir, the Reichsmarschall may believe 500 tons is achievable, but belief does not create tonnage. Aircraft do not multiply because Göring wills it. Weather does not improve because we need it to. Soviet fighters do not disappear because they are inconvenient. You are out of line. I am a quartermaster. Sir, my job is to calculate what is possible, and I am telling you that an airlift of 500 tons per day to a force of this size in winter conditions is at the edge of possibility. Any disruption, weather, enemy action, mechanical failure, and we fall below sustainability. Creutzfeldt intervenes. Captain Lindemann is correct. I have seen the Luftwaffe attempt aerial resupply before. At Demyansk, at Kolm, small pockets, short durations. They succeeded because the scale was manageable. This is different. This is an entire army. For months, potentially. Steiner's face is rigid. The decision has been made. We will prepare for aerial resupply. We will defend our positions. We will await relief. Those are our orders. He turns and leaves. The door closes behind him with finality. Creutzfeldt and Lindemann exchange looks. Vogel continues updating his maps with the steady precision of a man recording a disaster he cannot prevent. Reinhardt stands alone at the window watching smoke rise from the southern horizon. Sir, Creutzfeldt says quietly, there is still time. If we act now, without authorization, we could begin pulling divisions out of Stalingrad tonight. Form a mobile reserve. Strike toward the west while the corridor is still open. That would be disobeying direct orders. That would be saving 250,000 lives. Reinhardt does not turn from the window. I am a Prussian officer. General, I have spent 30 years learning obedience, learning to subordinate personal judgment to the chain of command. I cannot simply discard that now because the orders are difficult. Not difficult. Impossible. Even impossible orders must be obeyed. That is what separates soldiers from rabble. Discipline. Duty. Even unto death. Creutzfeldt's voice is soft but edged with contempt. That is what separates soldiers from corpses. Sir, dead men following dead orders. He salutes, turns, leaves. Reinhardt remains at the window. Vogel approaches quietly. Sir, may I speak? Go ahead. Major. Sir, I have been tracking Soviet movements since October. I have seen the pattern develop. I have calculated the probabilities, and I can state with certainty that if we do not withdraw within the next 24 hours, we will not withdraw at all. The window is closing. It may already be closed. Reinhardt's voice is barely audible. I know. Major, I have known since you first showed me those photographs. Every calculation you have made is correct. Every warning you have issued is valid. And every request I have submitted for authorization has been denied. I am trapped between arithmetic and orders. And I have chosen orders, even though orders guarantee destruction, even though Vogel wants to argue, wants to present more evidence, more calculations, more proof. But he sees the futility in Reinhardt's posture. The general has made his choice, not because he believes it is right, but because it is the only choice his training allows him to make. Vogel returns to his desk, makes another entry in his log. November 20th, 11:45 hours. Goering airlift promise received. Logistics analysis proves inadequate. Request for withdrawal denied. Encirclement now inevitable. He pauses, considers writing more, then closes the logbook. There is nothing left to say that the numbers have not already said. November 21st, 1942, 1600 hours. The southern front is collapsing now. Romanian Fourth Army has ceased to exist as an organized force. German units are falling back toward the Don, trying to form some kind of defensive line. But there are not enough units. Not enough guns. Not enough time. Soviet tank columns are racing across the steppe. T-34s and KV-1s moving in wedge formations. Behind them, motorized infantry. Behind them, cavalry units exploiting the breakthrough. The advance is not as fast as the northern thrust, but it is relentless, methodical, professional. Vogel tracks their progress on the map. The southern pincer is now oriented northeast, toward the rear of Sixth Army, toward the Don crossings, toward the meeting point with the northern forces. He calculates closing speed, distance remaining, variables for weather and resistance. The mathematics yield a simple answer. The pincers will meet sometime in the next 36 to 48 hours. Creutzfeld is in the map room. He has abandoned his division temporarily, left it under his deputy's command. He needs to make Reinhardt understand that time has run out. Sir, we must make the decision now. Not tomorrow, not when Army Group authorizes it. Now, today, this hour. Reinhardt looks up from a supply report. His eyes are bloodshot. His hands shake slightly as he sets down the paper. What decision are you proposing? General? Modified breakout. We cannot save the heavy equipment. We lack fuel to move the artillery and panzers west. But we can save the men. Order all infantry divisions to abandon their positions. March west. Light equipment only. Use the remaining armor as rearguard. We punch through the Soviet encirclement before it fully forms. Casualties. Heavy, 30 to 40%. But that means 60 to 70% survive. 150,000 men saved, against the alternative of 250,000 trapped. Reinhardt considers this. The arithmetic is brutal but sound. A fighting retreat will cost lives, but encirclement will cost more. The choice is between certain annihilation and probable catastrophe. I cannot give that order without authorization. Then request authorization one more time. Tell them this is the last chance. After today, it becomes impossible. Reinhardt nods slowly, reaches for the telephone. The call to Army Group is brief. The answer is immediate. Withdrawal is not authorized. Sixth Army will maintain positions. Relief operations are being organized. The Führer has personally directed that Stalingrad be held. Reinhardt sets down the phone. Looks at Creutzfeld. The answer is no. Creutzfeld's composure finally breaks. His fist slams onto the table. Maps jump. Officers look up, startled. Then they are murdering us. Every man in this army. They are murdering us with orders and promises and political calculations that have nothing to do with military reality. His voice carries through the headquarters. Heads turn. Silence spreads. Steiner appears in the doorway. General Creutzfeld. Control yourself. Creutzfeld rounds on him. Control myself. We are being encircled by 5 Soviet armies, and you want me to control myself. We have logistics for 2 weeks, and an airlift that cannot sustain us, and you want me to control myself. I want you to remember that you are a German officer. We do not panic. We do not despair. We follow orders. We follow orders into a mass grave. Steiner's face goes white. That is enough. You are relieved of command. Report to your quarters under arrest. For what? Speaking the truth. For insubordination, for defeatism, for undermining morale. Creutzfeldt laughs. The sound is ugly and bitter. Morale. Look at that map, Conrad. Look at it. We are surrounded. We are undersupplied. We are being sacrificed for a political symbol. There is no morale left to undermine. Reinhardt intervenes. General Steiner, stand down. General Creutzfeldt, you are not relieved. But you will moderate your tone. Both men turn to face him. Steiner's jaw works. Creutzfeldt's chest heaves. The room holds its breath. We are all exhausted. We are all under impossible strain. But we are professionals. We will conduct ourselves as such. General Creutzfeldt, return to your division. General Steiner, coordinate with the Luftwaffe on airfield preparations. I will continue liaison with Army Group. Dismissed. The officers disperse. The tension dissipates slowly. Vogel remains at his post, updating intelligence, recording reports. The work continues because there is nothing else to do. At 18:30 hours, he receives confirmation from Signals Intelligence. Soviet northern and southern forces are in radio communication. They are coordinating final movements. The convergence is imminent. He brings the report to Reinhardt. The general reads it without expression, then files it with the others. More paper, more evidence, more documentation of a catastrophe that everyone can see but no one can prevent. Major Vogel, if you were in my position, what would you do? The question surprises Vogel. Reinhardt has never asked for his opinion on command decisions. Sir, I would break out tonight, without authorization, accept court-martial, accept execution if necessary, but save the army, even though that violates every principle of military discipline. Sir, military discipline exists to make armies effective, to preserve combat power, to accomplish missions. But when discipline becomes a suicide pact, when obedience guarantees destruction, then discipline defeats its own purpose. Reinhardt nods slowly. That is logical, rational, mathematically correct. He pauses, and completely foreign to everything I was taught, everything I believe. I am not capable of that kind of disobedience. Major, I wish I were, but I am not. He returns to his paperwork. Vogel understands that the conversation is over. The decision has been made, not because it is right, but because Reinhardt cannot conceive of any other choice. November 22nd, 1942, 14:30 hours. The radio intercept is brief and matter-of-fact. Soviet northern forces report visual contact with Soviet southern forces. Grid coordinates provided. Location confirmed. Vogel plots the coordinates on the map, west of Kalach, near Sovietsky, exactly where the mathematics predicted. The ring is closed. He takes the report to Reinhardt. Steiner is already there. Lindemann arrives moments later. The four men stand around the map, looking at the circle that now surrounds 6th Army. Steiner takes a grease pencil, draws a continuous line around the German positions. It encompasses Stalingrad, the suburbs, the steppe positions west of the city, everything. 290,000 men, 22 divisions. Inside a pocket, approximately 40 kilometers east to west, 30 kilometers north to south. Encirclement is complete. Steiner says, his voice is steady, professional, as if he is reading a weather report. Creutzfeldt enters. He has been monitoring the situation from his forward command post. His uniform is dirty. His face is haggard. He looks at the map, at the circle, at the faces of his colleagues. So, it is done. Reinhardt nods. Yes, it is done. What are our orders? We establish defensive perimeter, conserve supplies, await relief. The Luftwaffe will begin airlift operations tomorrow. Creutzfeldt moves closer to the map, studies the terrain, the distances, the supply routes that no longer exist. We have fuel for how many days of mobile operations? Captain Lindemann, 6 days at current consumption. Sir, less if we face heavy attacks. And ammunition, 10 days at defensive rates. 5 days if the Soviets launch sustained assaults. Food, 14 days on reduced rations. Counting all horses available for slaughter. Creutzfeldt straightens, looks at Reinhardt. So we have perhaps 1 week of combat effectiveness remaining. After that, we become a static, defensive position, consuming irreplaceable supplies, while waiting for a relief force that must fight through 5 Soviet armies to reach us. That is the situation, and you still will not consider breakout. Reinhardt's voice is firm. We have our orders. General, we will obey them. Creutzfeldt stares at him for a long moment, then salutes with mechanical precision. Yes, sir, we will obey them, until there is no one left to obey. He leaves. His footsteps echo down the corridor, fade into silence. Lindemann speaks quietly. Sir, I should inform you. I have recalculated requirements based on encircled position. We will need to establish supply priorities immediately. Medical supplies must be reserved for critical cases. Fuel allocated to essential movement only. Ammunition distributed based on sector threat assessment. Food rationing implemented tonight. Prepare the orders. I will approve them within the hour. Sir. Lindemann departs. Now only Vogel and Reinhardt remain. Outside, darkness is falling. The pocket's first night as a surrounded formation. Somewhere in the ruins of Stalingrad. Soldiers who do not yet know they are trapped, bed down in cellars and shell craters. They will learn tomorrow, or the day after, when the rations shrink, when the ammunition allocations decrease, when they notice that no supplies are coming from the West anymore. Vogel makes his final entry for the day. November 22nd, 14:30 hours. Encirclement complete. 6th Army pocket established. 290,000 personnel. Estimated supply duration. 14 days maximum. Aerial resupply commencing tomorrow. Inadequate tonnage expected. He closes the logbook. Looks at Reinhardt. Sir, when did you truly know? When did you understand this was inevitable? Reinhardt is silent for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is distant, reflective. I knew in October, Major, when you showed me the first photographs, I knew the Soviets were planning something massive. I knew our flanks were weak. I knew we were overextended. I requested authorization to prepare contingency plans. I was told the decision was political, that Stalingrad must be taken regardless of operational risk. He pauses, traces the circle on the map with one finger. So I have known for 6 weeks that we were walking into a trap. I have known since the barrage began on the 19th that the trap was closing. And I have known since this morning that it was fully closed. But knowing and being able to act are different things. I was constrained before the battle began. By politics, by symbolism, by orders that made operational sense impossible. Do you think they will come for us? Sir, the relief force. Reinhardt considers this. Yes, they will try. Manstein is being given command. He is competent, professional. He will do everything possible, but he will be fighting through Soviet armies that are now established and prepared. He will need weeks to organize, and we have days of full combat capability remaining. So the mathematics do not work. The mathematics never worked. Major, we have been fighting arithmetic since October, and arithmetic always wins in the end. Reinhardt turns from the map, walks to the window. Outside, the first stars are appearing, cold and distant, indifferent to the geometry of encirclement below. Inform the division commanders. Conference at 0800 tomorrow. We will organize the defense, allocate resources, begin rationing, and we will do our duty until we cannot do it any longer. Sir, Vogel salutes, leaves Reinhardt alone with the map and the circle and the mathematics that have finally, inevitably, come due. In the signals room, radio operators monitor Soviet communications. The traffic is jubilant, excited. The two fronts have linked up. The encirclement is complete. Orders are being issued for reduction of the pocket. Artillery is being positioned. Fresh divisions are moving into siege positions. Vogel listens to the intercepts being translated. He thinks about patterns and predictions, about warnings that were ignored, about the difference between knowing what will happen and being able to prevent it. At 2200 hours, The first Luftwaffe transport aircraft approaches the pocket. A Ju-52 carrying medical supplies and ammunition. It circles the airfield at Pitomnik. Soviet searchlights reach up. Anti-aircraft fire stitches the darkness. The aircraft takes evasive action, lands hard, taxis to the unloading area. Ground crews swarm the plane, unload crates. Count them, weigh them. The total delivered, 4 tons. Lindemann receives the report, updates his calculations. At this rate, it will take 125 aircraft sorties to deliver 500 tons every day. In winter, under fire, the mathematics do not work. They have never worked. And now, inside a circle drawn in grease pencil on a map, 250,000 men begin to understand what Vogel has known since October. They are already dead. They just do not know it yet. November 23rd, 1942. 0600 hours. The first full day of encirclement begins with frost and fog. The temperature has dropped to -15 Celsius. Men wake in frozen bunkers and ruined buildings. They scrape ice from their beards. They blow on stiff fingers. They wait for the morning ration that arrives smaller than yesterday. Vogel stands at the airfield at Pitomnik, watching the dawn. The runway is a strip of packed snow. Around it, the wreckage of aircraft that did not survive Soviet fire, burned skeletons of Ju-52s, wings torn from fuselages, tail sections standing like grave markers. A transport lands as the sun clears the horizon. The pilot keeps the engines running. Ground crews unload in frantic haste. Crates of ammunition, medical supplies, sacks of flour. The entire cargo is weighed and catalogued. Total delivery, 3.7 tons. Vogel does the calculation in his head. At this rate, 135 sorties required to reach 500 tons per day, every day. In winter, through Soviet fighters and anti-aircraft fire, the Luftwaffe liaison officer, Major Franz Becker, approaches. He is 38 years old, career pilot. He has flown transport missions since Poland. His face is drawn. His eyes reveal the exhaustion of a man maintaining an impossible promise. Major Vogel, I have the overnight summary. 17 sorties attempted, 11 successful landings, 6 turned back by weather or enemy fire. Total delivered tonnage, 41 tons. Vogel writes the figure in his notebook. 41 tons. Against a requirement of 600, the mathematics are not theoretical anymore. They are written in the hunger of men and the silence of guns that cannot fire because ammunition must be rationed. Major Becker, what is your realistic assessment? Can the Luftwaffe sustain 500 tons per day? Becker's answer is careful, professional, but honest. Under ideal conditions, clear weather, minimal enemy interference, full operational capacity. Perhaps we could achieve 300 tons sustained, but conditions are not ideal. Weather is worsening. Soviet fighters are increasing. Our aircraft are wearing out. Crews are exhausted. I would estimate 150 tons per day as realistic sustainable rate. That is insufficient. I know, but it is the truth. They watch another transport attempt to land. It comes in too fast, bounces, slides on ice. The tailwheel collapses. The aircraft slews sideways and stops. Not destroyed, but not flyable. Another plane lost. Another piece of capacity deleted from the equation. Vogel returns to headquarters. The morning briefing is already underway. Reinhardt presides. Steiner updates the tactical situation. The Soviet ring is consolidating. Fresh divisions moving into siege positions. Artillery being emplaced. Observation posts established. Lindemann presents the supply status. His voice is flat, clinical. The numbers speak for themselves. Rations reduced to 2/3 normal as of today. All horses designated for slaughter are being processed. Heavy equipment movements restricted to essential operations only. Ammunition allocation by sector based on threat assessment. Kreutzfeld interrupts. What does 2/3 ration mean in practical terms? 300 grams of bread per man per day. Thin soup twice daily. Horse meat when available. Total caloric intake approximately 1,800 calories. Men cannot fight on 1,800 calories in sub-zero temperatures. No, sir, they cannot. Not for long, which is why we are consuming physical reserves. Men will begin to weaken within 2 weeks. Performance degradation accelerates thereafter. The briefing continues with the steady accumulation of bad news. Soviet probing attacks on multiple sectors. Frostbite casualties mounting. Medical supplies inadequate. No winter clothing in the airlift priorities. Equipment failures, increasing as cold damages machinery. Reinhardt listens to each report, makes notes, issues orders. His face reveals nothing. But Vogel, watching from his position at the intelligence desk, sees the weight accumulating. Each report is another stone added to a burden that cannot be set down. At 1100 hours, a message arrives from Army Group. Field Marshal Erich von Manstein has assumed command of the newly formed Army Group Dawn. His mission: organize relief of the 6th Army Pocket. Initial assessment indicates relief operations can commence mid-December. The message is read aloud. A murmur runs through the headquarters. Relief, rescue, hope. The words taste like food to starving men. Vogel immediately begins calculating. Today is November 23rd. Mid-December means December 15th at earliest. 22 days. He cross-references Lindemann's supply timeline, opens his notebook, begins writing. Kreutzfeld notices, moves to Vogel's desk. Major, what are you calculating? Vogel shows him the figures. Timeline to relief. Timeline to supply exhaustion. The two columns of numbers side by side. Sir, if relief operations begin December 15th, and if Manstein's forces advance at optimal rate through Soviet opposition, earliest arrival at pocket perimeter is December 22nd to 25th, 30 to 33 days from now. And our supplies. Vogel indicates Lindemann's projections. At current airlift delivery rates and consumption, we exhaust ammunition stockpiles by December 10th, fuel by December 5th, food reserves critical by December 18th. By the time relief arrives, this army will be immobile, largely unarmed, and starving. Kreutzfeld stares at the numbers. The mathematics are brutal, simple, undeniable. So even if Manstein succeeds, he arrives too late to save a functioning army. Yes, sir, he will relieve a position held by men too weak to break out, too depleted to fight. The relief does not solve the problem. It only delays the end. Kreutzfeld takes the notebook, carries it to Reinhardt, places it on the map table without a word. Reinhardt reads the calculations. His expression does not change. He has already done this arithmetic himself. Major Vogel, you are assuming optimal advance rate for the relief force. What if Soviet resistance is heavier than expected? Sir, then arrival date extends into January, at which point the question becomes academic. There will be no army left to relieve. The room absorbs this. Steiner's face hardens. That is defeatist speculation. The Reichsmarschall has committed to increased airlift capacity. Winter equipment is being prioritized. The situation will improve. Vogel's response is respectful but factual. Sir, the Reichsmarschall committed to 500 tons daily. Current delivery is averaging 70 tons. Weather is worsening, not improving. Soviet air defenses are strengthening. The gap between promise and reality is not closing. It is widening. Steiner opens his mouth to respond. Reinhardt raises a hand. Enough. We work with what we have, not with what we were promised. Major Vogel, continue monitoring airlift performance. Captain Lindemann, prepare revised supply projections, assuming current delivery rates continue. General Kreutzfeld, assess defensive capabilities at various supply levels. I want to know at what point we lose ability to hold the perimeter. The officers disperse to their tasks. The work continues because stopping means accepting what the numbers already prove. That this army is dying, that relief will arrive too late, that the mathematics were always impossible. November 28th, 1942, 1400 hours. 5 days of encirclement have transformed the pocket. The initial shock has worn off. Now comes the grinding reality of siege. Rations have been cut again. Ammunition expenditure is tightly controlled. Fuel is reserved for emergencies only. Most vehicles sit frozen and immobile. Vogel has been tracking Soviet preparations. His signals intelligence shows a pattern. The Soviets are not rushing to destroy the pocket. They are establishing siege positions, building up logistics, rotating fresh divisions. They are preparing for sustained operations. He presents his analysis to Reinhardt. Sir, Soviet doctrine calls for methodical reduction of encircled formations. Artillery preparation. Infantry assault. Artillery preparation. Infantry assault. They will grind us down sector by sector, and they have time. They know our supply situation. They know we are weakening. Estimated timeline for major assault, 3 to 4 weeks. Sir, they want us weaker. They want winter to do part of their work. When they attack, they want to face men who are starving and freezing, men who have already been defeated by mathematics before the first shot is fired. Reinhardt studies the intelligence summary. The Soviet methodical approach is tactically sound. Why waste men in hasty assaults when time and cold are allies? What do you estimate our combat capability will be in 3 weeks? Vogel has prepared this assessment. He pulls out a chart, declining curves representing different metrics. Ammunition, fuel, food, manpower, medical capacity, each curve trending downward at different rates. Sir, by December 20th, we will have approximately 40% of current combat effectiveness. Ammunition for perhaps 2 days of intensive fighting. Fuel for minimal vehicle operations. Food situation, critical. Frostbite casualties will exceed combat casualties. Units will be undermanned and undernourished. Can we hold the perimeter at 40% effectiveness? Against probing attacks? Yes. Against sustained Soviet offensive with artillery support? No. We will be pushed back, lose airfields, lose the ability to receive even the inadequate airlift we currently have. Reinhardt absorbs this. The defensive calculus is clear. Time is the enemy. Each day weakens the army. Each day Soviet siege preparations improve. The window for effective relief narrows. Eventually it closes completely. Thank you. Major, continue monitoring. Vogel returns to his desk, makes another entry in his log. The log has become a chronicle of decline, each day's numbers slightly worse than the previous. Tons delivered, casualties suffered, positions contracted. The mathematics of attrition accumulating toward inevitable conclusion. At 1600 hours, Lindemann requests urgent meeting with Reinhardt. He brings updated projections. His spreadsheets now cover worst-case scenarios. The numbers have become darker. Sir, I must revise previous estimates. Airlift average over past 5 days is 62 tons daily, not the 70 I projected. At this rate, supply exhaustion accelerates. He spreads new timeline across the desk. Ammunition insufficient for defensive operations by December 8th. Fuel exhausted by December 3rd. Food crisis begins December 15th. These dates assume no increase in combat activity and no further reduction in airlift capacity. Reinhardt's question is quiet. And if combat activity increases, if the Soviets attack before relief arrives, then we measure remaining time in days, not weeks. Kreutzfeld has been listening from across the room. He approaches now. Captain Lindemann, what would be required to break out? Fuel requirements to move the army 50 kilometers west. Lindemann has calculated this scenario multiple times. The answer never improves. Sir, to move 290,000 men 50 kilometers with fighting withdrawal against opposition. Minimum 1,200 tons of fuel, plus ammunition for sustained combat. Food for the march. We currently have fuel reserves of approximately 400 tons, sufficient to move roughly 1/3 of the army, 1/3 of the distance. So breakout is no longer possible. Breakout of the entire force was never possible after November 20th. Sir, we consumed the fuel fighting in Stalingrad. What remains is sufficient only for static defense and minimal tactical movement. Kreutzfeld's voice is bitter. so we are already dead. We just have not finished dying yet. Lindemann does not argue. The numbers speak for themselves. That evening, Reinhardt calls his senior commanders to conference. Division generals, corps commanders, key staff officers. They gather in the map room, faces grim, uniforms showing wear. The confidence of autumn has been ground away by 5 days of siege. Reinhardt does not waste time on encouragement. He presents facts. Gentlemen, you are aware of our situation. Encircled, undersupplied, awaiting relief. I want to discuss realistic timelines and capabilities. He gestures to the map. Field Marshal von Manstein is organizing relief operation. Earliest commencement is mid-December, allowing for Soviet opposition and winter conditions. Earliest relief reaches us is late December, 4 weeks from now. He nods to Lindemann. Our quartermaster assesses that at current supply rates, we can maintain defensive capability for approximately 2 more weeks. After that, combat effectiveness degrades rapidly. The implication is clear. Relief arrives after the army loses ability to function. One of the division commanders speaks. Sir, what if we reduce the perimeter? Contract our lines. Fewer positions to defend means lower supply consumption. Lindemann responds. Sir, contracting perimeter means losing airfields. We currently have 2 operational fields, Potomnik and Gumrak. If we lose Potomnik, airlift capacity drops by half. If we lose both, airlift becomes impossible. Then we are trapped by our own supply requirements. We need airfields to receive supplies, but we need supplies to defend the airfields. Yes, sir. That is the mathematical trap. Kreutzfeld stands. Sir, there is one option we have not seriously considered. A limited breakout. Not the entire army, but a mobile force. Infantry divisions shed their equipment, march west with small arms only. Leave the immobile units to hold the pocket, save perhaps 100,000 men while we still have strength. Steiner's response is immediate. That is abandonment. Defeatism. Against orders. That is arithmetic. 100,000 saved versus 290,000 lost. We have orders to hold. Relief is coming. We will not abandon our positions based on pessimistic calculations. Kreutzfeld's voice rises. These are not pessimistic calculations. They are logistics reports. They are mathematics. They are reality. Reinhardt intervenes. General Kreutzfeld, I understand your frustration, but we have been explicitly ordered to hold this position, to await relief. I cannot authorize partial withdrawal without permission from Army Group. Then request permission. I have, multiple times. The answer is always the same. Hold fast. Relief is coming. The political decision has been made. Kreutzfeld stares at him. Political decision, not military decision. In war, politics and military operations are inseparable. We are soldiers. We execute political decisions. Even when we disagree, even when those decisions guarantee our destruction. Reinhardt meets his eyes. Yes, even then. The room falls silent. The other commanders look away. They are all career officers. They understand the conflict between operational judgment and political orders. They understand that Reinhardt is trapped, not by the Soviets, but by his own obedience. The conference concludes without resolution. Orders are issued for continued defense. Supply priorities established. Preparations made for Manstein's relief operation. But the mathematics remain unchanged. Time is running out faster than help can arrive. November 30th, 1942, 0900 hours. Vogel receives a classified message from Army Group. It is marked for Reinhardt's eyes only, but Vogel, as intelligence officer, must decrypt and deliver it. He reads it twice, then sits very still at his desk. The message is from Manstein directly. It outlines the relief operation, forces available, Soviet opposition estimated, timeline, and then, buried in operational language, a statement that changes everything. Quote, relief operation primary objective is preservation of Southern Front stability. 6th Army pocket serves to fix Soviet forces in place. If relief is not achievable within acceptable casualty parameters, operation will prioritize defense of Rostov corridor over rescue of encircled formations. End quote. Vogel reads it again. The language is careful, diplomatic, but the meaning is clear. Sixth Army is not the primary objective. It is a secondary concern, perhaps even acceptable loss if it serves larger strategic goals. He takes the message to Reinhardt. The general reads it slowly. His face reveals nothing, but his hands, holding the paper, are absolutely still. Sir, this changes the operational calculus. Reinhardt sets down the message. Does it? Major, the mathematics were always impossible. This merely confirms what we already knew. We are trapped not by Soviet forces alone, but by strategic decisions made far from this pocket. Sir, if we are not the priority, then relief may never come, or may come too late deliberately. We could be left here to fix Soviet forces while the rest of the front stabilizes. That is a possibility. Then we are not being rescued. We are being sacrificed. Reinhardt's voice is tired. Old, Major Vogel, I am going to tell you something that is classified at the highest level. Something I learned in October before the Soviet offensive began. He opens his desk drawer, removes a folder, hands it to Vogel. Inside is a strategic assessment from OKH, dated October 20th. It discusses the vulnerability of Army Group South, the danger of Soviet counteroffensive, the need to maintain positions regardless of tactical risk, because political considerations demand symbolic victories. And then, on page 7, a paragraph that stops Vogel's breath. Quote, in event of major Soviet offensive against extended flanks, Sixth Army may become isolated. While rescue will be attempted, strategic priority must remain protection of Caucasus approaches and prevention of front collapse. Sixth Army pocket, if formed, serves valuable function, fixing Soviet reserves and preventing their use elsewhere, except that rescue may not be achievable within acceptable resource commitment. End quote. The document is signed by Hitler's chief of staff, dated 6 weeks before encirclement occurred. Vogel looks up at Reinhardt. Sir, they knew this could happen. They knew we might be cut off, and they decided in advance that we were acceptable loss. Yes, they knew. I knew. When I read that assessment in October, I understood that we were being placed in position not for victory, but for sacrifice. That the decision had already been made, that operational considerations were secondary to political and strategic calculations. Then why did you not refuse the orders? Why did you not protest? Reinhardt's smile is sad. Protest to whom? The assessment comes from the highest level. It represents the Führer's strategic vision. A field army commander does not refuse such orders. He carries them out, even when he knows they may lead to his army's destruction. Vogel feels something cold settling in his chest. Not fear, not anger, but a deeper understanding of the trap they are in. It is not just encirclement by Soviet forces. It is encirclement by their own command structure, by political decisions disguised as military operations, by orders that prioritize symbols over soldiers. Sir, if this is known, if the decision was made in October, then everything since has been theater. The relief promises, the airlift guarantees, the orders to hold fast, all of it designed to keep us here fixing Soviet forces while the real strategic priority is elsewhere. That is likely correct, and you have known this throughout. I have suspected it. This message from Manstein confirms my suspicion. Vogel stands, moves to the map, looks at the pocket, the defensive positions, the airfields, the 250,000 men who believe they are waiting for rescue that may never come. What do we do? Sir, Reinhardt joins him at the map. We do our duty. Major, we hold this position. We fix Soviet forces. We await relief that may or may not arrive. And if it does not, we will have served our strategic purpose, an army sacrificed to save a front. The men do not know this. The men do not need to know this. They need to believe rescue is coming. They need to maintain discipline. They need to do their duty until they cannot anymore. That is deception. Sir, that is command. Major, sometimes commanding means shielding your men from truths they cannot change. Vogel returns to his desk, makes no entry in his log. This truth is too dark to document, too bitter to record. He simply sits, thinking about patterns and predictions, about warnings that were ignored because the decision to ignore them had already been made. At 1100 hours, Creutzfeld arrives for meeting with Reinhardt. Vogel is present. Lindemann is called in. The four men stand around the map, the core leadership of a doomed army. Creutzfeld speaks first. Sir, I have assessed our defensive capability at various supply levels. My conclusion is that we can hold perimeter for perhaps 10 more days at current effectiveness. After that, we begin trading space for time, contracting lines, losing positions. The mathematics are merciless. Lindemann nods. My projections align. By December 10th, we are below minimum combat capability. By December 15th, we are immobile and largely disarmed. Reinhardt looks at both men, and Manstein's relief. Earliest arrival, December 22nd, by which time we are no longer a functioning military formation. Creutzfeld's voice is quiet but intense. Sir, I request permission to make one final attempt, a breakout by mobile elements. Tonight, before we are too weak, save whoever we can while saving is still possible. Reinhardt shakes his head. General, I cannot authorize that. We have explicit orders to hold, orders that guarantee our death. Yes, but orders nonetheless. Creutzfeld's control finally breaks, not with shouting, but with something worse, with cold, clear articulation of truth. Sir, answer me one question. When did you know, when did you truly know that we were not being rescued, but being sacrificed? Reinhardt is silent for a long moment. Then he reaches into his desk, pulls out the October assessment, hands it to Creutzfeld. The general reads it. His face goes pale, then red, then very still. October. You knew in October. I suspected in October. I have known with certainty since we were encircled, and the relief promises began. And you said nothing. What was there to say? That we are pawns in a larger game. That political decisions trump military logic. That we were placed here to die slowly while fixing Soviet forces. Would that have helped? Creutzfeld looks at Lindemann. At Vogel. Back to Reinhardt. We deserve to know. You deserve to maintain hope. To believe in rescue. To have something to sustain you while we carry out our mission. Our mission is to die here. Our mission is to fix Soviet forces, to prevent them from being used elsewhere, to serve strategic purpose, even if tactical situation is hopeless. That is what armies do sometimes. They sacrifice themselves so that other forces can succeed. The room is silent. The truth has been spoken. The deception has been revealed. The mathematics have been laid bare. Lindemann speaks quietly. When did I know? You asked General Creutzfeld that question. I will answer it. I knew on November 22nd, when I calculated airlift requirements and realized they were impossible. I knew that everything after was just slow death. Vogel adds his own answer. I knew on October 12th when my 6th consecutive warning was filed as alarmist. I knew then that they were not interested in avoiding the trap. They were accepting it as cost of political objectives. Creutzfeld's voice is hollow. I knew on November 19th when the barrage began. I have seen enough Soviet offensives to recognize annihilation fire. I knew then that everything after was just delay, just time until the inevitable conclusion. All three look at Reinhardt, waiting for his answer. The general moves to the window, looks out at the gray morning, at the smoke from field kitchens, at soldiers moving between positions, at an army that still believes it will be saved. I knew in June, when the Führer ordered us to Stalingrad instead of the Caucasus, when operational objectives became symbolic ones, when taking a city mattered more than destroying Soviet armies or seizing oil fields. I knew then that military logic had been subordinated to political theater. November 19th was not the beginning. It was merely the bill coming due for decisions made months before. He turns from the window, faces his officers. But knowing does not change our duty. We are soldiers. We follow orders. We hold this position until we cannot hold it anymore. We fix Soviet forces. We await relief that may come too late or not at all. And we do it with discipline and professionalism, because that is what separates soldiers from mob. Creutzfeld's voice is bitter, and when relief does not come, what do we tell the men then? We tell them they did their duty, that they served with honor, that their sacrifice mattered in the larger scheme of war even if it did not save their own lives. That is poor comfort. That is the only comfort we have to offer. December 1st, 1942. 600 hours. 9 days of encirclement. The pocket is shrinking. Not from Soviet attacks, but from logistics failure. Units are being pulled back from outlying positions, concentrating around the airfields. Each contraction reduces supply requirements slightly, but also reduces room to maneuver. The defensive perimeter tightens like a noose. Vogel stands at his desk reviewing the night reports. Airlift delivered 53 tons yesterday. 4 aircraft lost to Soviet fighters. Weather deteriorating. The mathematics grow darker each day. Reinhardt enters. He looks older than his 52 years. The weight of command has carved new lines in his face. Major Vogel, walk with me. They step outside. The morning is brutally cold. Their breath plumes white. Around them, the pocket is waking. Soldiers emerge from cellars. Stamp frozen feet. Blow on numb hands. Wait for rations that shrink daily. They walk to the edge of the airfield. Watch ground crews preparing for the morning flights. The activity seems almost normal, almost routine, but the desperation underneath is palpable. Major, you have been accurate in every assessment, every prediction. Since October, I want your honest evaluation. What are our chances? Vogel considers, then gives the truth. Sir, if Manstein launches relief by December 12th and advances at maximum speed through minimal opposition and weather is favorable and airlift capacity doubles and Soviet pressure remains light, we have perhaps 30% chance of successful relief. And realistically, sir, we have less than 10% chance. Too many variables must align perfectly. Too many things must go right. And history suggests that in war, things rarely go right. Reinhardt nods. He has known this, but hearing it stated plainly is different from calculating it privately. How long can we hold? At current attrition rates, effective defense becomes impossible by mid-December. We can exist longer, but not fight. By January, we are simply waiting to die or surrender. And you have known this since October. I have known the pattern pointed this direction. I have tried to warn, but warnings mean nothing if no one will act on them. Reinhardt stops walking, looks back at the pocket, at the ruins of Stalingrad in the distance, at the perimeter that holds 250,000 men. I want you to know something. Major, you were right about everything. The Soviet buildup, the encirclement pattern, the logistics impossibility, the political constraints. You were right, and I knew you were right. But I could not act because my entire life has trained me to obey. And now we will die because obedience has become indistinguishable from suicide. Vogel has no answer. What can be said when a man admits he has knowingly led his army to destruction because his training would not allow him to do otherwise? They return to headquarters. The morning briefing is routine now. Defensive positions, supply status, airlift operations. Each day a slight variation on the same theme of decline. At 0900, the 4 men gather one more time. Reinhardt, Creutzfeld, Vogel, Lindemann. They stand around the map, not discussing tactics, not planning operations, just 4 professionals facing truth. Gentlemen, we have asked each other when we knew, when we truly understood this was lost. I want those answers recorded. For history. For whoever finds these records after. He looks at Vogel first. Vogel's voice is steady. October 12th, 1942. When my 6th consecutive intelligence warning was filed as alarmist speculation, that was the moment I understood they were not trying to avoid the trap. They were accepting it. The Soviets were not hiding their buildup. We were refusing to see it, because seeing it would require actions that were politically unacceptable. Lindemann speaks next. November 22nd. When I calculated airlift requirements and compared them to historical precedent, the numbers did not work. Have never worked. Will never work. That was when I understood we were not being sustained. We were being allowed to die slowly while serving strategic purpose. Creutzfeld's answer is quiet. November 19th, 7:20 hours. When the Soviet barrage opened on the Romanian sector, I have heard preparation fire before. I know the difference between harassment and annihilation. That was annihilation fire. Everything after has been counting down to inevitable conclusion. We have been dead since that moment. The rest is just the formality of dying. Reinhardt waits, then gives his own answer. June 28th, 1942. When the summer offensive began, and I received orders to take Stalingrad regardless of operational risk. When the mission became symbolic rather than strategic. When political objectives overrode military logic. I knew then we were being committed to something that transcended rational warfare. November 19th was not the beginning. It was merely the mathematical resolution of decisions made months before. The four men stand in silence. The truth has been spoken, recorded, witnessed. What do we do now? We do what soldiers do. We hold our positions. We husband our supplies. We await relief. We maintain discipline. And we accept that duty sometimes requires sacrifice. That armies sometimes die so that fronts survive. That we are not the first, and will not be the last, to be placed in impossible position and told to hold regardless of cost. He moves to his desk, begins drafting a message to Army Group. Formal. Professional. It summarizes the situation. Supply status. Defensive capability. Timeline projections. And it makes one final request for authorization to attempt breakout while capability remains. The answer will be no. They all know it. But the request must be made. For the record. For history. For the men who will ask why nothing was tried. Vogel returns to his intelligence desk. Makes one final entry in his log. December 1st, 1942. 9 days encircled. 281,000 personnel remaining. Supplies critical. Airlift inadequate. Relief timeline. Incompatible with survival timeline. Outcome mathematically certain. He pauses, then writes one last line. We knew. From the beginning. We knew, and knowledge without ability to act is the cruelest burden of all. Outside, the pocket continues its slow death. Soldiers dig deeper into frozen earth, not advancing toward enemy, but toward the grave they share with their army. The mathematics that Vogel has tracked since October reach their inevitable conclusion, not with dramatic battle or heroic last stand, but with the quiet certainty of numbers that never lie. Time has run out. Hope has been calculated away. And in a circle drawn on a map, 250,000 men begin to understand what their commanders have known for weeks. They are already gone. They just have not stopped breathing yet. The December sun rises cold and distant over Stalingrad. Inside the pocket, men wait for rescue that will come too late or not at all. And in headquarters, 4 officers stand around a map, watching mathematics win the war that strategy and courage and duty cannot. The final equation is simple, inevitable, true. They were dead in October. They were just still walking in November. And now, in December, they begin to lie down. The pocket held for 63 more days. Field Marshal von Manstein's relief operation launched on December 12, 1942. His forces, designated Operation Winter Storm, came within 40 kilometers of the 6th Army perimeter by December 19th before being halted by fierce Soviet counterattacks. The pincers never met. The corridor was never opened. By Christmas, Manstein's exhausted units were in full retreat, pursued by Soviet mechanized forces. The airlift, which had promised salvation, delivered an average of 94 tons per day throughout December and early January, less than 1/6 of minimum requirements. By January 10th, when the Soviets launched their final offensive to reduce the pocket, Sixth Army had been without adequate food for 3 weeks. Without fuel for 2, ammunition reserves had dwindled to a few hours of defensive fire. The hospitals overflowed with men dying not from wounds, but from starvation, exposure, and typhus. The surrender came in stages. The southern pocket capitulated on January 31st, 1943. The northern remnants held until February 2nd. Of the 290,000 men encircled on November 22nd, 91,000 survived to enter Soviet captivity. They marched east in columns through the frozen steppe, passing the frozen corpses of their comrades who had not lived to see surrender. In the prisoner camps beyond the Urals, disease and privation continued the work that siege had begun. When the last survivors returned to Germany in 1955, fewer than 6,000 men remained of the army that had fought for Stalingrad. The mathematics, as Major Karl Vogel had calculated, had been correct all along. The Sixth Army had been dead since October 1942. November 19th had merely been the day the dying began, and February 2nd, 1943, was simply when the last man stopped pretending otherwise.